Reform. Democrats are certainly talking about making it yet another mandate for businesses and employers that they have to provide so much paid maternity leave that could be used by either a father or a mother, but that would seem to be crippling when you look at all the extra regulation we've put on employers, because it's not just the big guys that can afford to do this type of thing. It's the small businesses, the people that are already struggling under the burden of Obamacare, already facing the prospect of a rising minimum wage. So what is the conservative solution?
First of all, I have to say, when I ran across this article in the Washington Post a couple days ago, it's titled, "It's a Retirement Account, but for Pregnancy," and it was put together by the Independent Women's Forum, which is a right-leaning think tank in Washington. I had to say, wow, if you want a solution, leave it to a bunch of conservative women. They're going to come up with one for you. Because the liberals have been talking about this mandatory maternity leave. And I get it, you know, when people are working and then you have that baby, that's a huge cost to go through the pregnancy and delivery in the first place, but then to leave work for a number of months, that is a strain on the family. And a number of other countries do require some form of leave. But I'll actually share with you at the end of this, it said the authors point to a 2015 study in Chile, which showed that after the government told companies to provide childcare to working mothers, women's wages dropped. They also cite research from Cornell University's economists who found that women in European countries offering lengthy maternity leaves were promoted less frequently than their American counterparts. And you never hear the left talk about that. You hear them say that they want us to look like Europe all the time, but you're not hearing the nitty-gritty truth that companies know how much it costs for maternity leave, and so they will not promote women as quickly.
Well, it's the marketplace working itself out, because when you put more regulations and requirements and restrictions and you make it harder to hire a female worker, a female employee, then companies are naturally going to have an aversion to that. And I have to say, I'm interested to see if this plan moves anywhere, because on the surface, it at least allows individuals, families, couples, women, and employers to take the high road, as it were, and start saving for themselves, right. to be able to put this money away in a tax-free account that if they need to take certain amount of family leave, they can tap into that account and use that tax-free money to pay for their living expenses. It would be nice to see broad-based tax reform. But what we do know is that whenever the left has a good talking point, which paid family leave is a great talking point, they never tell you the full consequences of what's involved. And this study actually takes steps at saying, okay, if we're going to make this an option, first of all, it's an option, not a mandate. Second of all, it relies on the individual to be able to put away money, and it's simply the government saying, okay, if this is something we endorse, we support, so we're not going to tax it, but we're not making the employer pay for it.
I will explain what they said. They want you kind of to come up with something that looks like a health savings account. They wrote, workers would be able to store the equivalent of 12 weeks' pay per year, capped at a maximum of $5,000 annually. They could cash out only when they're eligible for extended leave under the Family Medical Leave Act, which provides most workers with 12 weeks of job-protected time off to care for a new child, tend to a sick relative, or recover for an injury. The Act, though, does not guarantee pay at that time, but the employers would have an opportunity to contribute into this fund. This is also a fund, then, that you could take with you to your next job. So if you started, especially for young women or a young married couple, if you started putting a little bit of money away into this account every year, and then you decided you weren't going to start a family until your 30s, you would have a hefty chunk of money that perhaps your previous employers have contributed a portion into that account. Employers want to help their employees. I want to help my employees. If someone needed to be or was sick and they needed to be out, I want to make sure that we are there for them and that they are financially secure. But when an employer cannot provide full pay for 12 weeks, we need to do something for them. And so I think as an employer, the option to contribute tax-free money into an account that would help me financially, and it would also help my employees. This is a great idea. Again, it was by the Independent Women's Forum.
It's really a win-win as you look at it, because it's not a mandate that employers have to have. It's something that allows individuals more freedom to save, which, frankly, whenever you look at how the government taxes right now and you look at the benefits packages that companies already have to offer, it gets pretty expensive to hire a new employee.
Yeah.
This doesn't add to that expense at all. It simply says this is an option for you. You can take advantage of it. You can use this money down the road. It's the government saying this is something you can do, and it lets people make their own choices. It's not this ridiculous one-size-fits-all, because we see what happens whenever the government does impose a one-size-fits-all. It leads to higher unemployment. It leads to growing cost of hiring people, so therefore companies are less likely to hire people. And as the study pointed out over in Chile, women's wages dropped. I don't think that's going to be a very popular talking point when Democrats roll out their mandatory paid family leave. Conservatives simply have to say, hey, look, there's a study that shows women's wages dropped because of it. So coming up, we're going to interview the Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin, Brad Schimmel. You're listening to News Radio 620 WTMJ. Michelle Litjens, Brian